you guys. We are excited to be back. Listen, I need y'all to pull up a chair because we need your opinion on this. There's a lot going on. And as you guys know, I shared recently on, if you're not on Instagram, I need you to be there so that you can get some of the inside of the topics that we talk about. Actually, it's very controversial. So we're going to need your input on this one. We'll give you all the facts, and then we want you to tell us, what do you think about it? Who should get the embryos when a couple splits? Let's talk about it. This has been going on so much more now in the US, and the numbers of these types of cases are increasing. Just as a reminder from our recent video, the first IVF case was in 1978. Y'all, it's been a long time. It's almost as old as, well, I'm not going to tell you your age, my age, but it's real old. Okay, it's been going on for a long time. People have been having IVF pregnancies. Thankfully, the success rates have been improving. And so the number and unfortunately, the need for IVF has actually increased over the years as infertility issues have also increased. And subsequently, that leads us to 1 to 2% of all births in the US, 1 to 2%, y'all, of all births are actually IVF births. That amounts to, in the US, 4 million per year. That's a lot. But people are having issues, right? Because guess what? At the same time, the divorce rate in the US is still pretty high. That means there's a percentage of that group that will have to decide if they have embryos that are still being frozen, they have to decide what they're going to do with it. So we're going to give you some insight on this conversation. We then want you to let us know what you think they should do. Okay. Dr. Trissa, it is so good to see you. You ready to talk about this topic? Because this topic is a little complicated. It's a little complicated.
Yeah, I'm learning. It gets deeper and deeper the more.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's talk about what an embryo is. Because, this has been the basis of some confusion politically. We've been talking,
right?
Yes, politically we call everything a fetus, but y'all, the truth is everything is not a fetus. At the very beginning of pregnancy, up until the 9th week after conception, it is actually an embryo. It is just some replicated, and I don't want to say just because, I don't want to step on some pro-life toes, but I'm saying, like, in terms of how we use the term fetus versus embryo, the first few weeks after fertilization, the pregnancy is considered to be an embryo. And the embryo stage is the stage that's frozen. This is not those who are getting egg retrievals and are freezing their eggs. So the topic we're talking about is the one that caused some dissension and a new law that just came out in Arizona. Because there was a couple, I'll give y'all some background. So homegirl, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer. And because cancer treatments, chemotherapy in particular, not including surgery, but some that requires surgical removal of someone's ovaries. But there are patients who undergo chemotherapy. And as a result of chemotherapy, Dr. Trissa, they may not be able to be fertile afterwards. And so there are individuals, and not just cancer, there are patients who have autoimmune diseases who are on chemotherapeutic medications who may decide to preserve their fertility by utilizing IVF methods. So they may be freezing their embryos as a couple. So here's the thing though. When you freeze your embryos, and we're talking about couples, not the singles that are freezing their eggs. When you freeze your embryos, you are going to be asked, what do you want to happen in the case X, Y, and Z? So what are some of the X, Y, and Z? Well, people can break up and divorce.
It happens.
People can die, right? And so they want to know, what do you want to do with your embryos? So this is definitely, I know some of y'all heard some of the celebrity cases that came out. We're not going to talk about the people. We're going to talk about the problem. And there are a couple of them that have been very public fights about the embryos. Because y'all know when a divorce happens, anybody want to talk. Sometimes folks don't even want to know you even exist, right? They don't want the mention of your name makes their skin crawl. Divorces can be passionate.
That's a nice way of saying it. They could be downright dirty.
downright dirt. Like, listen, people go for the jugular when it comes to divorce, right?
Yeah.
They literally want everything but actually see you die. And some people may actually wish that on you, but they will do everything possible to destroy you. And so the thought of having a child exist in this world that has combined your genes with their genes, that hurt. Okay, that's gonna hurt them, and so they will do anything in their power to make sure that that doesn't happen. We saw this play out in a couple very public relationships, but it's a very real situation. Like, what do you think about all these things happening, Dr. Trissa?
Well, wait. So let's back it up. So like you said it before, but let's kind of get it clear on the table.
Okay.
So we're not talking about women who may be single and just having their eggs retrieved and stored, or it could be women who are also married but for whatever reason are just having their eggs retrieved and stored. We're talking about now that they've taken the eggs, taken the sperm, and put them together. So it's now fertilized. All it needs to do is implant and grow. There's no additional step that needs to be had. Right? So just so that we're making this clear.
That part.
So now you have that combination. Let's put it that way. Combination of DNA. Mm-hmm. This is part you, part them. Right? Yep. And now the decision has to be made what's going to happen. But from what you're saying, you can't make that decision when you are divorcing. That decision has to be made at what point in time?
So before you even start your treatments, even for those who are getting their egg retrieved, they want to know, the facilities, the doctors, the team, they want to know, what do you want us to do in the event that something happens to you, you no longer want to proceed with your procedures, or the other possibility is you've already had some kids and you have some left over, because usually you want several eggs to be retrieved or several embryos to be formed in order to increase your success rate of having a pregnancy as an outcome, which is the outcome you want. And so you may use some of them, but still have some left over. You got to decide what you're going to do with them. So I will tell you the options I received, and the options I received include: one, just complete disposal. Mm-hmm. You know, in semantics, some folks may look at that as, you gonna kill your babies. Some people define life, you know, these are not fertilized. Keep that for those who are just retrieving, like Dr. Trissa just cleared up.
Right.
But for embryos, they're fertilized, right? So some people may say, you're killing your kids. So that may be a religiously touchy topic, religiously touchy, you know, or morally. Some people are, you know, atheists and may not subscribe to religion, but may feel morally that that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, the other option is to donate it to two types of groups. So usually donation to research, or donation to a couple that's infertile that may need some donated eggs. So you have the option to list out what you want to do with them. And at some point you can change your mind and ask for a new contract and do whatever else you want to do. But those are the main options. And so, first of all, Dr. Trissa, there are some folks who are doing this not even married. Let's clear that up too. There are some couples who boyfriend and girlfriend, y'all, who be feeling all in your feelings, all deep in your emotions, and decide, I don't want to get married quite yet, but I want to have babies with y'all. I don't, you know, however you figure that out, that's your business, right? But Dr. Trissa, what do you think about couples who are not married considering procreate? I mean, I guess technically people do that all the time, right?
They do, but you know what? There's the difference then between that casual, oh, well, we didn't use protection this time, or we kind of slipped up and it happened, versus the money, the time, the effort that you're putting into doing this. You're having, you know, a lot of people would say it's a piece of paper, or they don't want that kind of tie, or whatever the case may be. That right there, that kid, it be more of a tie than some papers, right? Like, papers can be disintegrated, if you want to call it all of that.
Right.
You ain't gonna go disintegrate your kid that's been alive and walking around outside of you. So you are creating yourself that extra tie. So for me, it doesn't actually flow. But yep, whatever floats your boat. Yep.
Yeah, and that's something that people should really consider because I know when people
Yes.
are in love, I consider love to be a form of psychosis. People have heard me say this before. But the reason why I say that and fight me on this, but the reason why I say that is because people sometimes when they are deeply in love or lust, whatever you want to call it, they
Whichever.
do things that they won't ordinarily do
Right,
in
right,
another mindset, right?
right,
And so sometimes people are deep in their emotions. They feel like they're in love. And in that moment, and they can't see anything but being with this boo. Like, that's my babe forever. We rolling. That's my dog. That's my homie. We ride or die. We have, Thelma and whoever you want to call the other one. They are, no, not Thelma. What's the other one? Bonnie and Clyde. We're
Oh,
Bonnie and
Bonnie and Clyde.
Clyde.
Okay.
Sorry, wrong movie characters, y'all. Um,
True.
well, one is not just movie, but anyway. So sometimes they feel like sometimes they feel like I see nothing else, and then reality hits and they fall out of lust or love, and they no longer want to even hear the very sound of the breath of the other person. And now
Right.
they have to come up with a decision. What I thought was interesting about this Arizona case, I was going to mention that clearly I got distracted, didn't mention it, so I'm mentioning it now, is that the couple were first just boyfriend and girlfriend. She had
Right.
cancer. This was her only way. So put a pen in this. This was her only way of having kids. Well, not only
Right.
she could adopt, and we mean outside of adoption, right? This was her only way of having her genetic kids was to retrieve her eggs, fertilize,
Right.
have embryos, and store for when she's ready to have her family. Now they get married, right? They get married, then undergo the IVF procedures, have their embryos, and guess what? It work out. So they divorce. So now we in court because now we're in court because he can't stand her apparently and want nothing to do with her and does not want to procreate. And she wants to have ownership of the egg. But he doesn't want, but he actually wanted, I believe, to donate the embryos. I'm sorry, I keep saying eggs. I don't want to, let me correct myself. He wants to donate the embryos
Embryo
to another
to another
couple, and
couple.
she wants
Right.
to have her own. She wants
Right.
to have these babies, right? So the court, actually, Arizona created an entirely new law
Right. Right. Right.
over this one case, an entirely new law. So these types of cases are creating new laws. And the
Mm-hmm.
problem is there is no federal rulership over this. And maybe at some point there may be, Lord help us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at some point something's going to go to the Supreme Court because stuff like this always some example
Always does.
heads to
That's
the
why
Supreme Court.
Roe versus Wade went right back up. I mean,
Exactly. Perfect example. Sad example, but perfect example, right? And so expect in the future, we're going to be talking about this more, and there's going to be more disputes and more unique cases because right now every state have different ways that they deal with these types of cases.
right.
But it's something
So
like, what would
and
you? Mhm.
Arizona's base law, or is it the law that they did find afterwards that they would allow, and this is the part that I find interesting.
Mhm.
And I don't, like I said, I don't remember if it was because of this or if it was before this, but the law is that if there's a dispute between the couple upon who gets the embryos, the one that would allow the embryos to be born would be the one to get
Yes.
the embryos.
Yes.
So basically, you're planning to fertilize these eggs, you must try to have them.
Yes. Yes. That's basically what they're saying. Which again, that's an excellent point, Dr. Trissa, because you could probably anticipate similar type of laws in the states that are, whether the state is anti-abortion or pro-abortion, right?
Exactly.
That's an excellent point. Their laws regarding what happens with these embryos are probably going to mirror the legislation of the land, if I may.
Right. Right. And I often wonder, um, so they gave the choice for you with the egg retrieval, but
Mm-hmm.
do they give similar choices that way with the embryo
Yes, they do.
freezing?
They do.
And is it in all the states similar? Because we're not going to say the same. Or are
I
we
would
having the
say,
same sort of thing where it's
hmm,
more pro-life, they're going to say, nope, you have to implant all of them. Or like, is that a thing? Because obviously, we can only
Not
go
yet.
to the clinic by six
Not yet.
weeks when we don't even know what we're pregnant at 6 weeks, right? We have these kind of things coming up. So now you have this embryo that's been taken out and it's past that lovely 6 weeks. Are they going to tell these parents that you now have to have them because it's like you've gotten pregnant and cannot destroy, abort, kill, or whatever
Ooh,
they call it?
Dr.
Is
Trista,
this what it is?
you are stepping on some toes because, but you're right though. The trend of the land, depending on what state, so you may want to look at what state you go and get your procedures done.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But the law of the land, that's before it becomes federal, because eventually it's going to end up there. But you're right. There can potentially come a time where states, force some type of non-disposal, if I may, of your embryo. Some form of it being donated, implanted, researched, or and utilized, for lack of a better word, because right now you do have the option for complete disposal if you don't want your embryos to
Be used
be
by
used.
you or anyone else. Right.
Yeah. But here's the thing though, our brown and black girls may have some issues with that because we tend to be used for research because we contain in our genetics some powerful genes. And as we learned from Henrietta Lacks,
Right.
some of us may
Right.
have some apprehension about things like that, right?
Right.
Because you don't really know, like, especially if you donated for research, you may have some apprehension about what exactly research are you using my embryos for, or
My
my eggs
DNA
for,
for. Mm-hmm.
and will you ever give me credit if you have some miraculous discovery, or you're able to make extreme scientific advances with
Mm-hmm.
my genetics? Will you acknowledge who I am? Will you give me the credit? Because that's basically what happened with Henrietta Lacks. They did not give her the credit, but had these amazing across the board genetic medical advancements, and she never got the credit for it. So there may be some, some of us black and brown girls may be a little hesitant with that research one, right? But what
A
if the
lot.
state requires or has some type of law that forces you to do that if you don't use your all of your embryos? Because in order to increase success, they like anywhere between 12, 15 sometimes per cycle. And so if you utilize two and you have successful pregnancy outcomes, you be like, I got two kids, I'm straight, I'm good on it. You may still have another 10 left, or another.
That's the other thing I was gonna
Yes.
say. Like, what is the average amount that's going to be implanted? So you said they want you to have 12 to 15 embryos. And then when they're coming
Ideally.
for optimal implantation, how many are they optimally implanting at a time?
Well, remember Octomon, they used to implant.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, did
What
she
had
just want
happened
everything?
was,
Did she
what
just say,
had
put them
happened
all
was,
in? Let's go.
we used to implant a whole bunch because just the outcomes weren't as great. But now they may implant two embryos. Is usually it's and this is no hard science. There's some ethical considerations, if you may,
Right.
with a couple's history and the likelihood of their success. So there's a little bit of, this is where the art of science comes in, the art of medicine comes in, is
Right.
that there, not every couple is going to have the same type of process, but we do know that with IVF, there are higher rates of multiple births.
Okay.
And so you may have two or three. I rarely hear more than that implanted
Okay.
at a time. Yeah. So if you have a successful pregnancy outcome and you've met your family planning goals, then you may have a significant amount of embryos left. And what do you do with them?
That's quite deep. I like to think if I were put in that position that I would say, you know, to have someone else
Mm-hmm.
who is having some infertility challenges to have that. But I cannot help but think about the fact that my DNA is running around out there without me. I just don't,
I'm telling you, that's the
I
whole reason.
don't know. I
But that
can't.
also, it's true. But this is a consideration because that's the same challenge that people have when it comes to adoption, right? The
Mm,
mindset of adoption is what really a lot of women struggle with. They struggle with the fact that they could potentially have a child out there that they don't have a connection with. And for a lot of women, that's a harder decision to make and
yeah,
a harder path to take sometimes.
yeah.
And so essentially, if you donate your embryo, you can potentially have the same type of scenario. It is truly that
Mm,
scenario. And even more so, you can potentially have someone else carrying your child, which is a different mindset also,
yeah.
because someone will have to carry the pregnancy. So there are having that experience of growing your child in utero. And
Right.
and that may be a hard decision for some women to accept, just like they have challenges with accepting adoption as an option, as a pregnancy outcome option.
And let me just go even a little further, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like social media and everything is real good, but I just keep thinking about things like you have your child, you successfully created your family, and then you go and you donate and somebody else successfully creates their family. What happened if your kids meet and like each other?
You
You know
know,
what I'm
I was
saying?
watching an episode recently of on Tamara Hall. And I remember that she had interviewed a young man who was adopted and wanted to find his family. And it was a good feel story. So he found his
Mm-hmm,
family.
mm-hmm,
His brother
mm-hmm,
was looking for him, reached out to him on social media, hit him up and was
mm-hmm,
like, I think you're my bro. And
mm-hmm.
eventually they met and everything. But what if this child who's raised and may have been carried by an ethnically different couple and clearly, typically realizes one of these things ain't not belong here, right? And realize that they are clearly phenotypically different and may have a different origin. Was another story of that on the same show. So clearly I watched Shammer Hall and she had a woman on there. Shout out to you too, because I just be scrolling through sometimes when I'm driving home and listening to these topics. But anyway, she had another woman on there who always was a little bit more olive than everybody else. And she had asked her mom for many years, why am I a little different, mama? And she never really got the answer that she wanted to until eventually she found out that the father that raised her was not her biological
Biological.
father.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these scenarios happen. So what if your donated embryo, then it's like they want to meet you. They want to know
Yeah,
who you are.
yeah,
Do they
yeah.
have a right to? Is this going to be a closed
Donation.
agreement?
Donation. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And are you
mm.
okay with your potential donated embryo coming back one day and saying, hey, I want to know who you are, I want to know who's my genetics, because I can't see them being any different than a child that's
Yeah,
adopted.
right. And the yeah, oh my goodness.
there's this is a
There's
slippery
layers and
slope.
layers of this to unpeel.
Yes, yes, yes.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. I
Yeah,
don't know what
let me
to say.
tell you, this has been something that's been my wheels have been turning like, what do you do if this happens? And what do you do if that happens? Because people honestly want to know their origin because there's a medical aspect of it, right? I mean,
Yes.
clearly you can write things down. You can say, this is my history, as sperm donors do and egg donors normally do, so that
Right.
in my family, genetically, we have an increased risk for high blood pressure or diabetes or X, Y, and Z. So they may actually want to validly need to know that information. But
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes some people have quirks about themselves. They are mathematical geniuses and they may want to know, where do I get this from? Whose
Mm-hmm.
genetics is
Mm-hmm.
this? That you don't necessarily won't typically be something on a questionnaire that
Mm-hmm.
is filled out on a medical questionnaire, but you may want
Right.
to know things about like I may be a gifted artist. Like, where is this coming? I'm not a gifted artist, y'all, but I may be a gifted artist. Where is this coming from? And people just may have that natural curiosity about who they are.
Right.
But this is a little bit of a challenge. So what happens? What do you do if I would say definitely before you sign those papers, consider those papers for IVF just as seriously as you do a marriage. I have to pause
More,
there.
more,
Let me rewind. Because some people don't even consider marriage. Y'all who be up in Vegas
you have
getting
to
married.
consider it as serious as purchasing a house and more.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know. I don't.
Because people do things all randomly, right? They do things on impulse. So I can't even say marriage because people get married nowadays and it's not as serious as other people may consider marriages. So I'm not even going to use that analogy, but I would definitely say this. Definitely think twice about it before you sign those papers and consider from the perspective of not of us being together, because we like to romanticize situations and have these fantasies. But the reality is, no pun intended, the reality is that some of those fantasies are exactly just that, a fantasy. And so I would definitely say when you sign those papers, sign from the perspective of, I can't stand you. And then make that be the root of your decision. and just make that be the root of your decision. Because if you are in that frame of mind, you may actually be in that frame of mind if it becomes your reality. So you want to be able to say, if I can't stand that person, what do I want to do with my embryos? What do I want to do with my kids, essentially? Do I want them to be disposed? Do I want, it'll be great if you can go 50-50. Like, are you going to decide that he takes 50 and you take 50? Or it may be a homosexual couple, or all the varieties of couples that we have. You may have a sperm donor, and maybe, because that's another consideration, right? What if I'm in a homosexual relationship and I decide, as I guess, how they alternate sometimes, I will be the one that will utilize my eggs and you will be the carrier of the pregnancy. So technically, it is not your genetics. It is only one partner's genetics.
Right.
Unless you implanted two, one is yours and one is
right.
It's a whole, y'all about to confuse me, but that's another potential. What if you're in if same sex, that I was trying to get the word same sex. What if you're in same sex situationships, because y'all be in some situationships too. What if you're in same sex situation and none of the embryos are yours? You may want to think about that, because homegirl may be like, you ain't got no rights because it's my genetics and we done. Y'all be having situationships just the same as heterosexual couples. So y'all really need to consider these situations before you decide to really come together as one, literally in a petri dish, in somebody's dish, in somebody's clinic, okay? In somebody's laboratory. Yeah. That is my advice, because all these other layers, we gonna need some of y'all lawyers to come up in here on another, maybe a part 2 discussion, and really talk to and really dissect out the legal aspects, because I definitely think that this is an evolving area of law.
Yes.
As it is, and as it reflecting the evolution of the science of it. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Any final words, Dr. Trista?
Think hard.
Very hard. Very hard. And you're a married woman, right? And have been married for quite how many years you been married now?
Oh, 10 going.
A long.
Wait, 11. Oh, smack.
11?
No, what am I saying?
See,
girl, I don't know anymore. I don't know.
Needless to say, a very long time, over 10 years. I know you had your 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
That I know for sure. So
last
a very
year.
long time.
Okay, yeah, 11 years. Okay, I wasn't so crazy.
See?
Yeah.
11 years, that's a long time, right? And you would say marriage, I won't put words in your mouth, but marriage I've heard is hard. right?
Marriage isn't easy.
And
And some days you love them, and then some days you'd like to throw punch them. And I mean, I've
see,
said this to many women, and they've shook their head, all in agreement.
see, I've heard that
She's
consistently,
still
that
mine.
those who are married, that some days are great and some days are not great. So if you have, just like you have to split homes, you have to split cars, and you may have to split stocks and everything else that you join together, maybe in a marriage, maybe in a partnership, depending what your situationship is. You know, this is just another area that you really have to contemplate before you really proceed with it. Really contemplate this, because at the end of the day, these are, listen, I'm not going to say it, but these are potential lives. These are potential lives. Yeah. And I don't want no anti this or pro this. We're just talking about the seriousness of the matter, that you really should really think about it, as Dr. Trista said, real hard.
Real hard.
All right. Thank
Brooklyn
you guys for joining us. This was a hard conversation because, you know what? I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. I think we're just have to wait to see how these situations evolve and how we feel as a people, as a country, even though we tend to be divided in a lot of things, all the variety of situations that may come up, because, you know, we didn't even go into the part that people may pass away. Like, what do you do if there's a bereavement issue? And do you trust your partner? Because some folks don't even trust their partners. We're not going to call out one of the housewives, but some people don't even trust their partners to adequately give funds to their kids if they have a kid that it was outside of the union, right? So, oh my goodness. so do you trust your partner enough to make these decisions when you're not even here with your embryos? And what if your partner, are you okay with your partner having the baby?
Yeah.
For those, you see where I'm going? Somebody else, like his future wife, is carrying your embryo as a surrogate. Oh.
Listen. It gets deeper and deeper. More onion layers to unpeel.
Like you said, think about it very hard. We thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think. This is a fun topic, but it's a very serious topic. Yeah. Let us know what you think, and if you think of other scenarios that we should have thought about also. And if you know the laws in your state, we want to know, what does your state do, or have you encountered this yourself? Even more so, we really want to know that. If you have encountered this situation yourself, or know somebody who has, don't tell all their business, don't identify who they are, but we want to know what happened as the outcome of that situation. Right. We want to know. Okay. We want to know, because we want to learn from it. It's not just about having some juicy cheese may. It's about really learning from these situations. And when you're done there, make sure you go ahead and look up some of our other videos. We talked about Black women fertility. We talk about, you know, careers and fertility. We have some hot topic discussions about fertility before. This is just another topic that was very relevant because of all the situationships that be going on in the news. And when you're done there, just look at our other videos. So we thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit up our apparel line. Make sure that people know that you represent a village, that you are of the mindset that it takes what? It takes a village. And when you're done there, make sure you hit us up where? On our Instagram. So Dr. Trista, where can they find you? At tristajob.dpt on Instagram. Awesome. And as always, I'm the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club. You can find us on Instagram as healthybump.club. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see y'all when next episode.